Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the STUMPCAST episode number 2. It's still surreal to me that I'm even doing this right now. Like I said in the first episode, I talked about this for a long, long time. I talked about maybe doing a collab with a couple of people on a podcast, but instead of trying to wait on other people or, trying to figure other things out and it not getting done, I decided I'm just going to take off and do this on my own. Somebody wants to join in down the road, that can be discussed. But for now, this is Stumpcast. I am your host, Mr. Tree Stump. Welcome to episode number 2, where I'm going to talk about a bunch of shit that you probably don't care about, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So, we've got a couple of different things that are going to happen in this video. I've got some things I want to talk about, and I've also got a segment that'll be put in here later on in the video where me and a very close friend of mine go kind of back and forth on our top 5 engines of all time, but we'll get to that a little later in the video. For now, what I want to talk about is one of my favorite cars of all time will always be the Corvette, the Chevy Corvette. I've got a lot of love for a lot of different vehicles, but the Corvette holds a very sacred place in my heart. More specifically, the ZR1 model. The 2019 ZR1 is amongst my top 5 favorite vehicles that have ever been made. From everything from the wing that they put on it to the wheel design to the redesign of the front end from the Z06 to the ZR1, all the way to the oversized supercharger they put in it, the amount of power that it was putting down. It was the ultimate track vehicle. There's a lot of different ways you could look at it, but in my opinion, it is the track vehicle. It is the ultimate track monster. There was nothing that could there's nothing that can compare to that as far as a production vehicle is concerned. Um so I've got some things here I wanted to kind of compare for my own knowledge because I really didn't know, and just to kind of share some of the knowledge too, what the differences look like between the last model ZR1 and the new model ZR1 that's coming out or that has come out. So the 2019 ZR1 was on the 6.2 platform. It was an LT5 on the 6.2 platform, standard Corvette engine. It was paired up with a 2.6 liter Eaton supercharger, which, again, this is a little bit of new information for me. That supercharger was actually 52% bigger than the supercharger that was on the Z06. I figured that it would be a little bit bigger. I just didn't know it was that much bigger. That's a pretty big difference, and that leaves a lot of room for play. So the 2019 ZR1 was put down about 755 horsepower, about 715 torque. An absolute track monster. For the fact that it only weighed 3,500 pounds, that is a lot of power for 3,500 pounds. The ZR1 had an upgraded cooling system. Between intercoolers and radiators, there was 13 total cooling systems on those, which is absurd. I'm sure there's another vehicle out there maybe that I don't know that has more. But just thinking about the cooling system and how things normally are, from having a radiator and maybe an intercooler, maybe a tranny cooler, and that's about it. A water pump, that sort of thing. You've only got 3, 4, maybe 5, depending on what it is, and this one has 13. That just blows my mind. I tried to go through and think about where they would all be, what they would all do, and I can't put it all together. I would have to do a little bit deeper of a dive into the mechanical structure of that vehicle to try to try to really figure out what each one of those things do and where they are. Anyway, the 2019 ZR1 had a top speed of 214 miles an hour, which for a production vehicle, yes, it was a performance-based production vehicle, but it was still a production vehicle. 214 miles an hour is abysmal. I mean, that is unheard of. There's very few cars that can reach that level. So the wing on the back of that car was an addition for the ZR1. It really set the ZR1 apart from the other Corvettes, and the way they designed it looked absolutely amazing. It fit the car, and it fit what the car was supposed to be absolutely perfect. Along with being a performance adder, it did create more downforce. The total amount of downforce on that wing at top speed is 950 pounds. That's a lot of downforce. That is a lot of downforce. But that car needed it for the amount of power it was putting out. The optional 7-speed manual transmission or the 8-speed transmission was a really nice feature as well, because a lot of those track guys really wanted the manual option. And it, some people wanted the ZR1 just to have the power, just to, it's cool, it's awesome, it's badass, it's the best of its kind, but they didn't really want the full experience, so they didn't want the manual transmission. So you were able to get it in an 8-speed automatic as well. Kind of defeats the purpose if I'm completely honest with you. If you're going to get something like that, you just as well get a you know get a 7-speed manual transmission. But hey, what do I know? I'm not one to judge. That ain't what we're here for. So, the 2019 ZR1 was roughly about 104. It started out about 140,000, depending on how you got it, whether you got the ZK3 or depending on what model you got, could go all the way up to $250,000, which is quite a bit more than the new model ZR1. The new model ZR1 starts off a little bit higher, but I don't think they quite go up to 250,000. So the transition from the 2019 ZR1 to the 2025 ZR1, we're definitely kind of turning from more track car, kind of turning into the direction of more of a hypercar or more of a supercar or whatever you want to call it. We're traveling out of the sports car area. Obviously, the 2020 Corvette still had the 6.2 platform. It was the redesign with the mid-engine, but it was still, it still had the same drivetrain. It still had the same power outers. It was still a Corvette on the inside. It just didn't look it. They switched for, I believe 2023 was the first model year for it. They switched to the newly completely redesigned LT7, the 5.5 liter V8 engine with the flat plane crank. This was the first time Chevy had ever tried to do anything like that. This is the first time they'd ever built anything like this, and it was definitely one of the better engines that Chevy has built. Obviously Chevy has a long history of using of making an engine and that engine being really good, and then them using it in a lot of different applications, a lot of different ways, and keeping it for a long time. I mean, look at the Chevy 350, was made for decades and put in everything. And the same thing with the 5.3. They don't put it in everything. It's mainly a truck application, but they've been making it for 30 years. They like their engines. They like to make something good, especially when it comes to the V8s. And the 6.2 was like that too. The 6.2 was used in pickup trucks, was used in the Corvettes, was used in the Camaros. They were used in the high models for some of the SUVs like the Tahoe. It was used in a lot of different applications. Um, and it was a really good engine too. It was really the power that it put out made it good for being put in a truck. It had plenty of power to pull or do whatever you needed to do with it. Or if you wanted to soup it up a little bit, make it go a little faster, you could do that too. That's why it was good for the Camaro and the Corvette as well. Um, so this 5.5 liter LT7, it was really the first time Chevy had ever dipped their toe into something specific. It was really the first time that they had said, okay, we have this thing here that is transformed from a sports car almost to the realm of a hypercar. We need something that suits it. We need something different for this. And that was when they came out with the 5.5 liter V8. Now, the big difference between the LT7 and all the Corvettes up until the ZR1 in 2025, as the 2025 ZR1 was the first American production vehicle that was ever outfitted from factory with twin turbos. That to me was as I'm a turbo guy over a supercharger guy. Don't I superchargers have their place, and I am a supercharger fan, but if you give me the option, I'm going to take turbos every time. Um, and when they announced that the ZR1 was going to be outfitted with twin 76 millimeter turbos, 76 millimeter turbos, for anybody that don't know, are fucking huge. The amount of boost you can move and you can push in with 76 millimeter turbos is outlandish. Um, to go along with that and to be accompanied by that, that engine, I think I didn't look it up beforehand, and I wish I would have. I want to say was running somewhere between 16 and 18 pounds of boost with those 76 millimeter turbos. Um, and that was pushing out that thing's over 1,000 horsepower. I don't think, as far as the American production is concerned, I don't think there's been another American production vehicle that's been over 1,000 horse. I do believe up until this point it's been the Demon at 800 or 811 or whatever the Demon was. I don't think there's been another production American one that was over 1,000. So that's a milestone in its own. It had 1,064 horsepower, 828 torque. Top speed was 233 miles an hour, which top speed isn't really necessarily as important on the track as it is as acceleration is and stability. Um the other thing with that too is they did away with the 7-speed H pattern shifting manual transmission. They stuck with the 8-speed, but they switched it to a dual clutch system. So you still have your paddle shifters, you can still control it, but it's not the same thing as the H pattern shifter. Um the transition to go from supercharged to twin turbo, I think honestly was good for the direction they were going. I think the supercharger had its place for the more rough around the edge V8 muscle car sports car realm, but moving into the more track vehicle hypercar realm, I think twin turbo was a necessary change. um there's a lot of people that would argue against that. My reason for the justification in the change is just simply because you have a lot more control and a lot more capability with turbos. Um yes, you can control the boost, yeah, on a supercharger the exact same way you can twin turbos, but you don't have near as much space taken up. You don't have near as much power, or excuse me, you don't have near as much space taken up. You don't have near as much weight, and it's a lot easier to swap and upgrade, I guess is the word that I'll is the words that I'll go with, for somebody that maybe doesn't quite understand as well as somebody that's been doing it for a long time. Turbos are going to be a lot easier to try to upgrade than supercharger is going to be. Um the price has gone up on these a little bit as well. The starting price up from 140 to 100 and almost 180,000 for starting price, but the high model ZR1 is only $200,000. You're not going up to the 250,000. Um, do I think the mid-engine looks any better than the 2019 ZR1? Absolutely not. I think the 2019 ZR1 is absolute peak Corvette. There's a lot of people that are going to argue with that, and mind you, that's just my opinion. There's a lot of people that are going to argue with that. You've got the C1, C2, C3 that are all gorgeous cars. Gorgeous cars. But for me and what I think the Corvette should be and what it should do, the 2019 ZR1 is peak Corvette. That's just my opinion. Um Keeping along with that, the I want to talk a little bit about the 2026 ZR1X. I had to do more research on this and I didn't really find a whole lot, but I knew they announced it, but I didn't really know what it was. And basically, for anybody that doesn't know and that hasn't looked into it, basically they took the ZR1 and the Corvette E-Ray and put them together. So you've got your supercharged LT7, or I'm sorry, your twin turbo LT7 plus your electric motors on all four wheels, and they put them together. Why they decided to do that, I have no idea. That sounds like a lot in one car, and for the amount of power that was added to it, I don't know if it was really worth it. They went from about 1,064 horsepower to about 1,250, which, I mean, that really only means that those electric motors are putting out about 50 horsepower to each wheel, which, yes, more is better, but I don't really know that the addition of all the weight of those electric motors is really worth 50 horsepower to each wheel. I don't know. We'll have to see. It definitely does it definitely does better than the ZR1, I will say that. The ZR1 0 to 60 time was between 2 and 3 seconds. They're predicting that the 2026 ZR1X 0 to 60 time will be under 2 seconds, which is wild to me. The 2025 ZR1 had a quarter mile time of just a little over 9 seconds, and they're predicting the ZR1X will be the first ever production vehicle to run the quarter mile in under 9 seconds. I've got a feeling, just based on what I see on the vehicle and what I know about drag racing, I've got a feeling it'll run about an 8.8 or an 8.9. Um, and they're saying that this one is going to be the real hypercar competitor. The ZR1, the 2025 ZR1 was already kind of leaning that direction, but they're saying that the ZR1X will be the real hypercar competitor. Um, and I really think the Corvette is the one that's done it all. It's been a muscle car, it's been a sports car, and now we're moving into hypercars. Um, it blows my mind that they have done with the Corvette what they've done. It's definitely got it's the Corvette the graph for what the Corvette has been and what it has done has definitely been on a rise, and it's continuing that trend. Um I still think the 2019 is peak Corvette, but again, that's my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion just like you're entitled to your opinion. I am curious as to know what you guys think. What do you think peak Corvette is? What do you think of the ZR1X? What do you guys think between the transitions of the 2019 ZR1 to the 2025 ZR1? I'm curious to know what you guys think about it. So definitely, wherever you're listening, whether it be Spotify or YouTube, drop me a comment down below, leave me something, give me a little bit of feedback. Let me know what you guys think of the transitions that were made and where the Corvette's headed, and if it's a good direction or not. Um, I definitely think the ZR1 all in all is the king of the track. You have, as far as looking at it as more of a muscle car perspective, the only vehicles you've got that could really compete with it would have been either the Charger or the Challenger, which just simply don't add up to it. The Demon is the closest thing power related wise, but that was meant for drag racing. That doesn't perform on the track the way a Corvette's going to. And that's been proven. Um you could say the Mustang, but I mean the Mustang's not trying to be in the same realm as the Corvette. That's more of a comparison to make with the Camaro. So I don't really think that's even a fair comparison. So the vehicles I think from each respected brand that could be talked about really are the Viper and the Ford GT. But the argument that I'm going to make here is that the Corvette is a production vehicle. The GT hadn't been made. The GT's only had two models in the last 25 years. And the Viper I don't even think they're making another one. I think the Viper's done. I don't think they've announced another one. Was only made about every 4 years. The Corvette, where it may not be the ZR1 specific submodel, the Corvette is a production vehicle. It's never been not made. That's definitely the argument that I would make for it, that, as a production vehicle, this is doing what it's doing and it's dominating its realm. Now, does that necessarily mean that it's as fast and as good on the track as the GT or the Viper? I mean, there's an argument there, and that's a whole different conversation to be made. But as a production vehicle, there's nothing on the track American made that's doing what it's doing as a production vehicle. So there's an argument to be made there too. There's a lot of feedback that I'm looking for on that too. You know, what do you think? Is the comparison worth being made considering the Corvette's a production car and the other ones aren't? Do you consider the other ones production cars? And there's an argument that's going to be made too. I can see it off in the distance that the Mustang GTD will be a competitor for this. No, it won't. One, it's not a production car. Two, it's still a Mustang. There haven't been enough changes to that thing to make it comparable to the Corvette. Is it going to do good for what it's trying to do? Hell yeah. I think it's going to do great for what it's trying to do. I think it'll blow what their expectations are out of the water. But I don't think it's comparable to a Corvette. So that's my thoughts on it. We're going to go ahead and transition now into the top 5 list that me and my buddy did. This guy is a close friend of mine. He has been for the last probably 4 or 5 years. We've known each other for probably over 20 years, but we've really only been close friends for probably the last 5 years or so. But this is the top 5 list. Granted, this is his list versus my list. Totally opinions. You know, we give our reasons for them, but they're totally opinions. Let us know down in the comments below. YouTube, Spotify, whatever. I know I'm asking a lot of you guys. Whatever you guys think, drop a comment down below. Let me know what engines you would put in your top 5 list, and maybe a little bit of feedback on what you think of our top 5 lists. You know, is there anything you would change? Is there anything you agree with? Anything you don't agree with? Let me know down below. So let's transition into that top 5 list. So for my honorable mention, I went with a 454 big block Chevrolet. And the only reason the only reason I did is because it's the exact same platform as the 350 and the 305. The only reason I couldn't necessarily put it in my top 5 is just simply because it didn't have the same power output as the 350 and the 305. It had more torque and it did its job, and it did its job well, but it just simply didn't have the horsepower it needed to compare to the 305 or the 350 for me. That's my honorable mentions, the 454 big block Chevrolet. So what's your honorable mention?
My honorable mention would be the 4.6 Ford. I can't even. I believe it's not the Terminator. Terminator was a specific Mustang in general. Granted, Terminator was also.
Yeah, the
Anyway,
Terminator 4.6 was its own separate thing. I don't think the Terminator 4.6 was a Triton motor. I think it was the same style and platform, but I don't think it was a Triton.
No. But no, the 4.6 aggressive engine, great sounding, outstanding performance, but compared to the newer counterparts and all that, it just could not hold up anymore.
Agreed.
The 2-valve, 3-valve just could not do it.
Nope. It was very outdated by the time they did away with it. So for my number 5, I went with a Coyote 5.0, which I know is kind of up your alley, but I had to include it on here. And I know it's a fairly young motor. It's only been around for about 14 years, but the reason it had to go on the list is just because for a stock block, there's no other engine out there that can withhold the amount of power that it can. I don't think there's a Chevy motor out there that can do it. I don't think there's a Chrysler motor out there that can do it. Those things hold insane amounts of power without having to do the bottom end or the internals. So that's why the Coyote 5.0 had to come in number 5 for me. So what's your number 5?
Number 5 for me would be one of them old, the ones like they shoved in the 60s and all that. 60s Chargers, Challengers, and I believe 60 CUDA or something.
I believe you're talking about the 426. Yeah,
I believe so.
Yep. That's
Great
exactly what I
sounding,
figured.
sexy fucking engine.
Very.
Back when Hemis were an actual fucking Hemi.
Pretty sure that's what I have in old Pappy.
You do.
I figured.
And they got fucking power.
Yes,
God,
they do.
They
got. I've noticed. I mean, I don't know how close it is to realistic, but I've noticed that with that, yes, that car I have on Forza Pappy is turned up a little bit, but I've noticed that it has an absolute top end power. It doesn't pull super hard, but once it gets up there into the power band, that's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 4 is is a production engine, but it is not necessarily a production engine that comes in any mainstream cars or anything like that. The number 4 engine for me is the Proline 481X, which for anybody that doesn't know, basically it's a Hemi motor, but it's made by the guys over at Proline specifically for drag racing performance. And it's again not one of those engines that's very old. They've only had the 481X out for like 10 or 12 years or something like that. It has not been out very long. But from the day it came out, it immediately started going in everything. A lot of guys in the pro street area don't use it, but pretty much anything running like a 7.0 or under, chances are it probably has a Proline engine in it. They are absolutely bulletproof. They can make anywhere from 3 to 6,000 horsepower without blinking an eye, without having to change anything, without having to do anything. I mean, you just get it, you drop it in, and it's fucking ready, and it'll eat. You know, it's high maintenance, but for what you get out of it, I think it's definitely worth it. So the Proline 481X is definitely a number 4 slot for me. What do you have for number 4?
For me, shockingly, and I can already hear you, is the 5.4 Triton. And the reason being, honestly, God, yes, it has its fucking problems. Yes, my God, the shooting out of the spark plugs and all that. We can get all the jokes aside. I understand. That is not the reason why I chose it, though. Well, even though it had its issues, you have to admit it had decent output for what it was. Had really decent output, and for an engine, just a regular old 5.4 engine from a Ford, was slapped into a lot of different. Like the three good main ones, obviously, we all know the 5.4 F-150s and all that shit.
Yep.
You got them in your trucks, but then you also had the 5.4 and the GTs back in the day, and then even the 5.4 engine being slapped into even a non-Ford brand of oh, what is it? Ones that made Yesco.
Koenigsegg?
Yeah, Koenigsegg.
Yep.
Of them using the 5.4.
I don't know that that was a Triton, though. I believe that was just the 5.4 platform.
It was, but still, that it took representation from it.
And don't forget the SUVs either. They put those in Explorers and Expeditions too.
Did they?
Yep.
I did not realize that part.
I can't remember.
Shit, yeah, no,
I
a very
did.
versatile engine that was slapped in a lot of stuff.
That's exactly right. I don't actually remember if they put the 5.4 specifically in the Explorers. I know they for certain did the 4.6, but I know for a fact that the 5.4 was in the Expeditions. So my number 3 is going to be one, honestly, if I had to bet, you would probably think I would put a little bit higher considering the type of person I am. But the number 3 on my list is the Chevy 5.3 LS. Chevy has a long history of making an engine and it being extremely reliable and them sticking with it for a really long time with minor tweaks. And the 5.3 definitely falls under that category. They've been making them for 26 years because the first one came out in 99. And other than maybe a little bit of oil leaks from the pans or from the pan and the filter housing, I've never heard of catastrophic engine failures in 5.3s, rarely at all. They just keep going and going and going as long as you maintain them. And realistically, for what it was, the Chevy trucks were extremely heavy until they started rusting out and you had your weight reduction. They had a pretty decent amount of power for what they did. They were the perfect design for what they were made for, in my opinion. So the Chevy 5.3 is definitely a high contender on my list. What do you have for number 3?
For me, once again, yes, it is another Ford engine. I am a Ford boy.
Hmm?
It is the 5.2 Predator engine, not the Voodoo, the Predator.
Yep.
The ones that they use in the GT500s. Outstanding performance of an engine. Phenomenal performance. Great intake. It has a nice output. Sounds fucking vicious as all hell.
Yes, it does. One of the better sounding engines, if I have to say so myself.
And that it is definitely put where it should be on the track. That is a track fuck
Yep.
if I have ever seen. My God.
I would agree with that 100%. So, my number 2 engine honestly is the one that I think is going to strike you a little weird. Because believe it or not, my number 2 engine is actually a Ford engine, and that's the 427. The Ford 427 was they put it in a lot of different things, but specifically the one that I'm thinking about is the 427 that they built for the Ferrari versus Ford deal at Le Mans way back in the 60s that they put in the GT, or what was that, the Mark II and the Mark 1 GT40s. And the only reason I put that on there is because yes, they did have bigger motors back in the day, but at the time for its day, that was one of the biggest and most high output engines out there, period. What they did with that engine and the amount of work and time that they put into it for what they got was well beyond its years. Honestly, I don't know how they even came up with some of the things that they did that went into that engine back in those days. My guess is that they had to just do some guessing and hoping that it worked. But the amount of innovation that goes into that engine for as old as it is definitely why it's a number 2 engine for me. What do you have for number 2?
Number two is going to probably somewhat not surprise you, but surprise you. It is going to be the 5.0.
Coyote 50?
I, lo- I love my Coyote 5.0. Like you said, you could throw so much shit at it before you have to get anything to the internals, and it will eat shit alive. And you
One of the
give it
most durable
air,
engines.
you give it more air, it's just gonna take it, and it will run with it. Like my God,
That's exactly
it
right.
is outstanding of an engine of that the Ford came up.
Yeah, whoever was the man that designed that Coyote 50, it definitely needs a firm handshake. He did that. That was a very good design, and I don't think a design like that'll ever be replicated. I don't think there's another engine that'll ever be mass produced like that one is that can
No,
do what it does.
it
I don't think there ever will be.
it's it it's got such a not unique, but it's almost got a perfect volumetric shape with it.
Yep, I would
It's
agree with
got
that.
almost the perfect amount of cubic inches and everything. It's fantastic. The input output ratio is great with it. It's
Yep, I would agree with that. On the same token of volume of it being volumetric or whatever that however that was that you said that perfect. My number 1 should not come to a shock to anybody that knows me is the GM 350. The the as far as output versus input, it was 100% perfect. You had a great amount of power for the amount of engine that you got. It was 100. I mean, they based 2 other engines off of the 350 platform because the 350 came first, and then you had the 305, and then you had the 454. They based 2 other engines off of that. And going along with that, part of the reason why I'm saying the 350 is just the simple fact that they were everywhere. They put them in everything. If they could physically fit the 350 into the engine bay, they put a 350 in it. That and that made parts so easy to find for these things. And because they were so perfect and they were so well built, they were so easy to work on. You could tear one of those things down and have it put back together before the end of the night. I mean, they were just so simple. And the obvious reason as to why that is just simply because they've been making it for as long as they did. They mass produced it in vehicles for from 1954 to 2003, so 49 years. And I didn't know this, Eli. I don't even know if you know this or not, but you can still buy a Crate 350 engine from GM. I didn't know that until I was doing research for this list. That they're so reliable and they've done such a good job on them that you could still buy them. And that to me, it had to go with the number 1
that's
slot.
commitment.
It is. It's very much commitment. That it had to go in my number 1 slot for that reason. There's never been another engine that was as mass produced as the 350 was, and for good reason. So that's my list. That's my number one. What do you got for number one?
For my number one, once again, should not come as a shock. It's Ford. Uh, was the old original 302,
Hmm.
the OG,
Oh yeah.
the thing that started it all, that brought us the 5.0 later on in years. Just, mm. And to hear that thing fire up and just going down the street, low and slow. I
They
don't care if
purred
it's fast, low and slow. Oh my god.
they purred like kittens.
Yes, they did.
And then they
Uh,
growled real nice too when they got angry.
yes, they did. My god.
Okay, well that completes the top 5 list here. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Whether you, mind you, these are opinions. So keep that in mind when you listen to
We
this.
we cannot reinstate that enough times. It is opinions. You have your
There's some
own, we have
there's
ours.
some
Keep it
factual
that way. We'll all be happy.
there's some factual information in here, like the dates and different things like that. But like, these are just our opinions from the experience and the likeness that we have. So keep that in mind. So, Eli, I appreciate you doing this here with me. We'll see you again for another segment down the road.
Yep, yep. See you then.
I want to thank you guys for lasting this long in the podcast. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, follow, whatever you got to do, do it. I'm really living out my dream here by making this podcast. I really don't know if it's going to take off, but it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. It's just an outlet for me to come and just talk, share my opinions, share what I think's going on in the world, whatever we got going on. So please make sure you drop a comment, do whatever you got to do. Let me know what you guys think. Give me your feedback down below on everything here. Let me know what you guys think, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Let me know what you guys think. The interaction is what I'm here for. I like conversating, I like debating, I like doing all that stuff. So let me know what you guys think down below. This has been episode number 2 of the STUMMPCAST. I will be releasing an episode a week. It'll be coming out every Saturday morning. Make sure you keep an eye out for it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for your continued support. Make sure you go follow all my other socials too. I am Mr. Tree Stump across all platforms. We stream live regularly on TikTok and Twitch, so make sure you check both of those out. Thank you for being here. Have an awesome day.